Hello and welcome to the Go Fish Village podcast, where we help everyday people just like you achieve financial freedom through real estate. I'm your host of Go Fish Village, Joshua Mercer. As the Chinese proverb states, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. Today, I have a amazing guest coming to the show. She is the founding partner of Vive Funds, where they have over 2,500 units under management, $400 million. She specializes in commercial real estate, over a decade of experience. She's a philanthropist, multifamily investing, strongly believes in passive income and real estate investing, uh, funding deals, syndicating, the whole 9 yards. Graduated college at age 20. Veena Jetti, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you have a remarkable story, 2,500 units, and it's not like you started when you were at age one. I mean, you worked in corporate America for quite some time.
Mhm.
How were you able to get, or just tell me about your first introduction to real estate?
Yeah, so I took the shortcut in because I come from a real estate family. So my mom is actually a very successful real estate investor. Both of my parents were immigrants to this country, came here with nothing, and both of them retired early from my mom's real estate investments. And
Wow.
so, yeah, so I kind of had the shortcut in. And so, like, the first deal I was ever involved with was like when I was like before I could walk, probably when I was like a couple years old. I think my parents started taking us to closings and to showings and to really boring meetings that I did not care about at the time, that now I'm eager to attend as an adult in my business. And so that was really like my first exposure to real estate. I was in the corporate world, like you said. I left a large corporation in 2012 to start my own company. And so now we're based out of Dallas now. And I am the founding partner of Vive Funds, where we focus exclusively on multifamily opportunities, specifically in the Class B value add space. So my first deal that I did after leaving corporate America in my own portfolio, we actually did, it was a condo deal in DC. And
Oh, nice. I went to college in DC.
Oh, you did?
I
Okay.
went
So
to
I
Howard.
love
Yeah.
that area. Oh, you went to Howard?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that area. I loved living there. It was like amazing area, great food, great people. I miss living there. But it's
Super expensive. Super
yes, it's
expensive.
so expensive. And so we left for Dallas to kind of put down roots, buy a house for, a fifth of the price in DC. And so I still have the condo portfolio that I built when we were in DC. I still have it today. It just cash flows really well. I've had it for a long time, so planning on keeping it. But that was my first deal that I did on my own.
Yeah, I had a guest on the show. A guy I went to college with. He bought a 3 unit in DC for like 400,000 and sold it 3 years later for 900 grand.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, that was crazy. And he's a realtor, but he was and he said when he put it on the market, like it sold over the asking price like super quick.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. Well, now there's a lot of product coming up in DC, so there's a lot of new development, and
Hmm.
I think it's kind of slowing some of the excitement for like condos. But I think if you're situated correctly, the rental market is still very strong. And I like it as a market in general because the government is there and they're not really going to let the city fail per se.
Not at
So,
all. Yeah, it's always gonna be a good economy in DC.
exactly.
So your parents were kind of like your influence. A lot of times, a lot of my guests who come on, they talk about, I was raking leaves with my parents, or I was doing this and I hated it, But then as they got older, they learned to appreciate it. When you were younger, were you thinking like, okay, I'm gonna be this real estate mogul? Were you thinking that?
No,
No.
no. When I was younger, I was like, I'm going to marry rich so I don't ever have to work and do all these boring meetings every day.
Yeah.
That was what I thought when I was a kid. Now, I do this because I love what I do. I don't have to work. I don't have to do this. I'm very lucky in that way. So yeah, no, it definitely was not like that. I actually thought I could avoid all of the boring meetings, but it turns out when you're on this side of the table as an adult, they're exciting meetings. So you start looking forward to that.
Hmm. How, I mean, I also like the fact that you mentioned your mom. We don't really hear that too much. Number one, your parents were immigrants. So, I mean, I couldn't imagine going to another country and,
I know.
you know, investing in real estate, not just another country, totally different culture,
Yeah.
being like totally different language, the
Yep.
whole nine yard. And your mom is the one, I'm sure your dad did his thing too, but
And we worked.
but you're, having your mom as an influence, how helpful is it for someone who gets into real estate to maybe have a mentor or have an example of someone in front of them? How important was that for your growth?
I think that a lot of people do it without the situation I was born into, right? Like I had a lot of privilege and I was very lucky in that way. But I think that it gave me a massive head start, number
Mhm.
one. And number two, more importantly, is I have a built-in trusted board of directors, if you will, to my
Yeah.
companies, because now when I'm like facing a tough issue or I'm not really sure about something and I want to talk it through with somebody else, I actually go to my parents. So my dad worked a W-2 job before. Now, like I said, he's retired. He manages the real estate now. But my mom's really the one that built that. And to your point, they came here with $26 in their pocket. They
Wow.
didn't have any money. And so everything that they've done, they're self-made. And I do think it's a lot more of an accomplishment what they did than what I've done, because it's different when you start with like no credit and you don't have a safety net and you don't have all of these things to fall back on in the event that something goes wrong, because these are investments. There's inherent risk in them.
Yeah. Wow. So I need to have them on the show.
Tell my mom there's a
So how
booking.
do you so like the $1 million question, how do you get to, I mean, you quit your job in, I think you said 2012. Uh your first deal is a condo. Obviously, I think the first deal is like one of the most important deals you can do because that light bulb comes on. But how do you scale from that one deal and how do you get to 2,500?
Yeah, very carefully. I will say this, it's like an exponential scaling, right? So when we started, it was like one, then it went to five, then it went to 10. And so it slowly ramped up. And then I'd say like once you get over the hump of like 100 units, like at one deal in one complex, it's a lot easier to start scaling that up. So my most recent deal was also one of my largest deals. And that was an $80 million deal
Whoa.
with 494 units in one asset.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah, so but if you put those together, that's only five of those deals to get to 2,500. So scale starts happening on the multifamily side once you're going after larger and larger assets.
Wow. So how, like, what is the strategy to get to 2,500? Is it the best way to do that? Is it to raise money? I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure you weren't doing cash out refis constantly to get to 2,500.
No, it does not work like that. So yeah, what we do, I do what's called syndicating. I raise capital from other high net worth or high income earners who want to passively invest in real estate, but they don't want to deal with all of the nuance of own, because it's a lot of work to own real estate and operate real estate. And so what we do is we take everything from literally cradle to grave, A to Z solutions for our passive investors. So our passive investors are mostly our physicians, attorneys, other real estate investors who have high cash flow. So accredited investors, they'll invest 100,000, 200,000, whatever is comfortable for them in each one of my deals. And then we handle all of the active side of the deal. For me, that's been the easiest way to scale because I don't have unlimited funds. We do have private funds that we do invest in every single deal alongside of our investors, but not everybody has 20 something $1 million laying around. So
Yeah, unfortunately.
that's where these syndicated funds come into play. And we do utilize our own funds too. So we have an in-house fund that we're capitalized on that allows us to go after certain deals and kind of not have to raise as much capital or not raise capital at all too. So it's a blend.
Good. That's good to know because a lot of people get into real estate thinking it's a passive thing,
Mm.
and I tell people that that's a myth. I have 7 units myself, and
Mhm. That's
I
harder
feel
than
like
what I do.
what'd you say?
It's harder to manage 7 than it is to manage what I'm at.
And so what's interesting is that I had a guest on here. They was like, it really doesn't become passive until you get to like 1,000 units. Then you can step away, hire a president, and then you can make decisions here and there. But when you have like 7, it doesn't make sense to hire a property manager because you're not making
Enough money, yeah.
any money. Or if you want to be completely passive, hire, invest in someone like yourself and not just look at my dividend.
That's what a lot of my investors want. They
Yeah.
want to get their check in the mail, they want their email update, and they don't want to be bothered until there's another deal. So that's kind of how we're set up. But yeah, no, there's nothing passive about what I do. I mean, my investors rely on me to be actively involved in my business. So every time I do a deal, I'm making a 5-year commitment at a minimum, usually, from that date forward, and until the project really exits. I think it would be disingenuous to step away all of a sudden. But yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier to scale. It's a lot easier to manage. At scale, you can start bringing in your own asset managers. You can start bringing in controllers. You can start bringing in different team players that you're not just doing everything yourself. And also having the ability to have management on site kind of starts at 100 units, maybe 70 in some markets.
Wow.
And so that's why I say it's a lot harder to manage 7 units, because for
Yeah.
me, managing my single families that I have are way more of a headache and hassle than managing any of my individual communities, because I have third-party professional management on those.
Yeah, last night, oh, well, not last night, but 2 days ago, I was shoveling 2 different driveways. Not fun at all. How do
Yeah.
you how do you go about building a team?
Mhm.
Um, can you just talk about your process for that and what are some of the key players that
Yeah.
someone would need to if they want to scale and really treat real estate like a business?
Yeah, so we have a very good team around us, and I'm actually someone who, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So I rinse and repeat the same team over and over and over again. So um, the first thing we actually do is we talk to our financial advisor, right? So we use a guy named Ryan Inman, who's based out of LA. He's a fee-only physician advisor, and he's fantastic because he understands the intricacies of real estate. He comes from a real estate family.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm talking to him, and because he's fee only, it's great because he doesn't get incentivized for me to have AUM with him, assets under management with him. He gets the same amount regardless of whether he's advising me to put it in real estate or not. So there's no conflict of interest there, which I really like. Then we go to our tax strategist. So we use a team based
Wow.
here out of Frisco, Texas. And we kind of start involving all of those pieces early on, so that as we're structuring the deal, we're doing it in the most tax efficient way for our investors and also for our personal portfolio. We also at the deal level itself, on my team. So my sister is a minority owner in my company. She helps, and really I brought her on because I'm a control freak and I will not give up control to the bank accounts, but I need help with the volume of transactions we do. And I do not trust anybody with bank accounts other than myself or my sister. And so only partners have access to bank accounts.
Mm-hmm.
Certain things I just am not ready to offload yet. Um,
I'd love to talk about that. That's going to be my next question about the partnership,
okay.
things that you should discuss. But yeah,
Yeah.
keep going. I'm sorry.
Okay. So then everybody else on the team is really external to our core business. So that could include a JV partner. I've JV partnered with a lot of really fabulous people over my career. I think it's a great way to actually get to scale quickly. Our title company, we work with the same title company every time. Our attorneys. So for our syndication documents, I work with the same attorney every time. You probably have heard him speak with me. His name's Nick McGrew from Polymath Legal.
Okay.
So what I like about him is he does our SEC stuff, he does our syndication stuff, but then any of my investors that are looking to set up an LLC or something very basic and simple, he does it for discounted rates for my investors. So that way I'm creating like an ecosystem where everybody already is familiar with the deal from multiple facets. It makes it very
Mm-hmm.
I use the same lender based out of Orlando. She knows us. She understands our background. She has all my financials. I update her every time we close a deal. She has all that information. So it makes it a lot easier. And so And then we have our contract attorneys. So depending on the
Wow.
location of the asset, we use the same attorneys there. So it's like very rinse and repeat. All of my team knows each other. They know who they can go to for information. They know what information they can disclose to each other. And so it makes it kind of easy to scale up in that regard too.
Wow. That sounds like it took some, like you took your lumps getting to that point, you
Yeah.
know?
I mean, when I find a good person on my team, like I make sure I really nurture the relationship so that they know we're going to be rinse and repeating it. And they know how I work, our style works together. Because for me, my style is like, I need everything yesterday. And
You said my style is I need everything yesterday.
we know that going in. And so the thing is like when I'm mid deal, especially like I need people that are going to work 24/7 because I work 24/7,
Mhm.
especially mid deal.
Well, yeah, if you're doing transactions, $80 million, I'll get out of bed for that. You know, you can call me. Yeah, I'll
Right.
be there. No, that's good stuff. So partnerships, a lot of times it sounds sexy. Oh, hey, you're my friend. I know you. You're my cousin. You're my brother, sister. Let's be partners. You got a good job. I got a good job. Then you get into the deal. Oh, I gotta work. I can't be there. Or, I got family obligations. What are some things that everyone should consider? Because partnerships they do help you scale and get to a certain level. But what are things people should consider when evaluating a partner and if it makes sense to partner with someone?
Yeah, so I've been very lucky in that I've had some really great partners. I've also had some really bad partners too. So I've done both sides of it. The biggest takeaways, I think, from the mistakes I've made with partnering, I would say first and foremost, make sure you have everything documented and papered up because it gets very expensive to try to figure that out after there's a
Hmm.
messy divorce or breakup happening.
Yeah.
So paper up everything in the beginning. And it's hard to do that because everything's like happy and nobody really wants to like talk about the nitty gritty of like a divorce. Cause you're like, if I'm thinking about moving away from you at some point, why am I going into this partnership? But it really should be talked about when everything's nice and friendly and rosy. So that's number one. Have an attorney draw up your contract. A lot of people want to kind of sidestep that, but it will save you a lot of issues later on. I've had friends that have gone through really ugly business divorces, and a good contract has saved them thousands of dollars and a lot
Mm.
of heartache. So I would say have that in writing, even if it is with a family member or a friend. I have businesses now that I am passively invested into, or I run silently with friends, with family. And every single one of them now, I have a very clear operating agreement. It says exactly what's expected of everyone, who owns what, how we unwind from the partnership should one of us decide to leave. And so I think like those things are kind of just the basics. But I would say people can change, right? And things can change, and that's okay. It's okay to outgrow partnerships.
Mm.
Sometimes partners are really good for the growth you needed at that moment in that season of your life. It does not mean you have to stay there forever and ever and ever. Actually, it's very rare for partnerships to stay for decades and decades and decades. So I would say, with that in mind, also know and understand what your skill set is, what you're bringing to the table, so that when you are ready to grow, you know what other pieces you need to bring into your business or what other partners you need to look for. Another recent thing that I've been doing that I really like this structure so far, and it's worked out really well for me, is rather than going out and creating a partnership in Vive Funds, for example, right? What I've been doing is I've been looking for strategic partners that can be JV partners. So that way I take on just the roles and responsibilities that I'm interested in. I find someone who's synergistic and who shares the same outlook, and I JV partner with them. So it's on a deal by deal basis, and I'm not going into like an unknown time horizon of working with. Uh,
That's smart. So it kind of limits your liability in a way, and it also affords you a good exit.
It does. And it
Uh,
allows me to maintain control over how I want my company run, which was the biggest challenge that I've faced over the years. Is you have partners who they have opinions and they have inputs, and rightfully so. But it's tough when you feel very strongly about one thing and a partner maybe feels strongly about something that happens in their world of the business.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's sometimes competing priorities, and it just makes it a lot easier for me to kind of have a global overview and make global decisions for the company singularly.
That's awesome. That's awesome. How's it been as a woman in this space,
Yeah.
and not just a woman but a young woman,
Yeah.
in this space?
I think it's been interesting because this is definitely, young white men and maybe middle-aged or older white men are really the dominators in this space. And I'm obviously not white and I'm not a man. So
Yeah.
spoiler alert. So it's been interesting because I get a lot of I get a lot of the extremes, right? So on the one extreme, I have a lot of investors who want to invest in a minority owned, female owned company, a woman owned company. And so I get a lot of investors. I get a lot of women investors that I did not get previously, that are now starting to take control of their finances, which I really love and it has me very excited. I also get the extreme of, I've walked assets before and I've had brokers asking me when my husband was coming. And I mean, I don't even know why they think my husband is coming. And so, it's been interesting. Sometimes I'm like, okay, well, we can wait for him. He doesn't know we're buying this. So we might be here a while, but sure, if
Wow.
you want to. But my husband isn't even in the field of
Does that motivate you?
um I don't know if it motivates me or if I judge them for not really doing their homework.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if I'm
Google is your friend, huh?
like, and if I'm spending like $30 million on this asset, like you probably should know, or at least when I come in and I introduce myself as Veena Jetti, partner at Vive Funds, that should mean something to you if you're in a sales role, right? Like you should know your customer, you should know your client. Like I know my investors very well. I know who they are. I would never presume that, one of them was working with their husband just because they were a woman in a space that is not traditionally thought of as a woman occupied space, if you will. So, I mean, for me, it doesn't really matter. There's plenty of opportunity for me I can't pay attention to that because it would detract from what I'm really trying to do.
That's real. And now, how are you able to create a reputation for being a winner? Like, how are you able to go out and be able to purchase something that's 30 million or $80 million and build trust in folks? Because even I might be a physician making 300 grand, but even nobody wants to lose money. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? How were you able to get people to trust you?
Yeah, I think it's consistency. And once you start having a track record, it's a lot easier to utilize that. But what I will say is I'm very, very clear with investors as they're coming into investments. I tell them, hey, just so you know, I tell them, hey, just so you know, this is an investment. This is not all rosy like everybody thinks. Like there are downturns and there is risk to investments, including real estate, including multifamily. Yes, it's a risk adjusted return. It's a historically stable asset class. It has one of the best Sharpe ratios over the last 25, 30 years of investment horizon. But this is a marathon, not a sprint. And so I never tell my investors that I'm going to put anything guaranteed or anything safe or anything promised in front of them because I can't do that genuinely.
Yeah.
I also tell them I don't go for the home run. That's not my investment style. There are investors that do that. They do a great job. They swing for the fences. Sometimes they hit, sometimes they miss. I don't do that. My investment model is very middle of the road. Like we go for the solid double, the solid single, solid double. And we do that over and over and over. And so I think it's just a matter of being consistent, being transparent. Every time I do a deal, I learn something new. I learn something I could be doing better. I adjust my processes to kind of meet my investors where they are.
Do you ever find yourself having to turn investors away that may be uneducated about
all the
You
time.
know, I give you 50,000 today. I want 55 tomorrow. You know.
Yeah, I actually turn away capital all the time now. My
Wow.
problem actually isn't capital. My problem is finding enough deals that I'm willing to put my name on, because I also invest alongside my investors. It's very important to me that my brand and my name are only going on to the best projects. So I do way less deals than most people in my space.
Hmm.
But yeah, I turn a capital away all the time. I turn capital away. So I do an intake call with my investors when they sign up in my portal on my website. And in that intake call, it's a two-way interview at this point. There was a time where I didn't sleep and I was begging everybody for the change in their couch cushions.
Yeah.
But I'm just not there anymore. I have more capital than I know what to do with. And so now it's a two-way street. I interview the investor, they interview me. I make sure that I think they're going to be a good fit. I've taken investors that are not a good fit before, and it is way more work for me to manage them and their feelings around the deal than it is for me to not take them in. Because then it becomes a lot of communication, a lot of back and forth. And I'm happy to do that for my investors, but there has to be like some basic level of trust and some basic level of comfort around the deal. So I turned people away. I turned away a $2 million check because I didn't think it was a good fit. So
Wow.
yeah,
Those are good problems to have.
yeah, they're great reference to have.
So as a syndicator at a high level, like how do you get paid on a deal?
Mhm. Yeah, so there's different fees, and the beauty of syndications is they're really flexible. So the way I syndicate my funds and the way I set up my fees and my structure could be totally different than yours. And in fact, mine vary from deal to deal. Generally speaking, we have an acquisition fee, a financing fee, a disposition fee, and asset management fee. But that's not really the bulk of where we get paid. Where we actually really get paid is in the hurdle splits that we set up. So we structure where our passive investors get what's called a preferred return. So the first 100% of profits up to a certain percentage, let's call it 7 or 8%. 100% of profits until my passive investors realize 7 or 8% annualized goes to them. After that, usually we'll have something like a 70-30 split or a 60-40 split where 60 to 70, maybe 80% goes to the passive investor. The rest comes to me. It's what's called a promote. That's where we make the bulk of our money. Now, one of the things we also do is we structure with what's called a hurdle or a waterfall. And so what that means is when we hit a certain trigger point, let's say it's an IRR trigger and it changes from project to project, but let's say it's 14% on a project.
Mm-hmm.
After we go above and beyond that 14%, then the split goes from 70-30 down to 50-50. So it again changes deal to deal, but every deal any syndicator does, they should give you what's called a PPM, a private placement memorandum, and that will clearly spell out everything about the deal as much as possible. So
How did you learn that? How to syndicate?
I don't know. I think from talking to our attorneys and really understanding the process, and it was actually kind of it's like a gradual change from using your own capital to syndicating capital, because I had a lot of friends that approached me after seeing what I was doing for my family, and they said, "Hey, can you teach me to do this on the weekend?" And I said, "No, I do this for 100 hours a week, and you are a surgeon. I cannot teach you how to do this in a weekend."
Yeah.
But then they started saying, "Okay, great. Let me give you my money and I'll write you a check and you do the work and we'll do bigger projects together. Let's partner." And so then I asked our attorney, and I really spent a lot of time understanding exactly what that meant from a responsibility standpoint for us to take in investor funds.
Awesome. So just switching gears a little bit, paying $750 in taxes.
Oh, yeah.
um, you obviously, a lot of people initially hear real estate and they think of the income that you can as being a huge benefit. Can you talk about the tax benefits, which I think are tremendous? I'm a business owner, and I remember my first year in business, I owed all this money, and I didn't feel like I was like, how do I owe all this money and I don't even my life has not changed
Yeah, right. You're not broke.
whatsoever.
No.
But the following year, I bought the building where my office is located, and I owe less money. Same kind of expense situation.
Yep.
But can you talk about the
Yeah.
tax advantages of of real estate investing?
Yeah. So I'm not a CPA. So like none of this is actually tax advice. So go back to your people. So it's my disclaimer there.
Yes.
But yes, so actually the reason I left the corporate world, I was in corporate real estate. And I left the corporate world because the first year my husband and I were married, we paid a ridiculous amount in taxes. And taxes is one of the benefits that even passive investors can see benefits from real estate investments. So we do what's called a cost segregation study on all of our buildings. And basically what it is it's a way to make your asset, your tax benefits, the most tax efficient possible. So we pay a consultant to come in, and
Wow.
that's the only thing that they do is a cost segregation. And you can utilize it on smaller assets as well. It's just kind of cost prohibitive. So it depends on like what the pricing is, but it's worth looking into if you own real estate. So what we do is we give our investors a K1. So typically they're getting a negative K1 on their investment. So if it's a passive investment for them, there's certain rules and limitations on that. But when you're an active investor, I have full-time real estate professional status because this is all I do. This is my profession. And so the IRS has certain rules that allow us to deduct against active income. And so we can take the depreciation losses from our assets against active income coming into the house. And my tax strategists like really love this scenario. I told you I worked with a tax strategist, and they're the ones that have really worked with us to make sure we're as tax efficient as possible. And so anybody that's actively investing in real estate, especially, I think that it would be like a huge misstep to overlook the benefits of being able to reduce your taxable income.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, I have a friend that he works in Silicon Valley. Him and his wife work in tech,
Yeah.
and the first time I heard of that cost segregation was from him because they were
Yeah.
looking for opportunities to decrease their tax liability. Can you talk about failure real quick? Maybe a time that you failed, or maybe not failed, but one of the biggest lessons that you've
Oh God,
learned.
I fail all the time. How much time do we have? Like, it's a failure. But look, like we fail forward, right? That's
Mhm.
kind of, and like I said earlier, every deal that we do, I learned something I did not know before. And it doesn't matter how many deals we're doing or the size of deal, there's always something to be improved upon or to do better. I would say, so actually a big failure that I had recently that I definitely learned from, in hindsight being 2020, I would have handled completely differently, was actually when COVID started. One of our assets, it just got hit harder than other assets. It was an asset in Florida. It's just the nature of investments. Our tenant base just could not withstand a COVID hit as much. And so anytime there's any kind of like chaotic situation or anything like that from the syndication, like sponsor standpoint, we immediately go to principal conservation. That is the first thing we do. We want to conserve all principal first and foremost and protect that. Then above and beyond that, we want to generate and distribute our returns. So what essentially happened is we decided to go to withhold pref, our preferred payment that we were paying out on a monthly basis very consistently. We decided to withhold that and make sure we were really managing cash flow at the asset level much closer, because we didn't know how COVID was really going to affect the asset in the long run. And we wanted to be able to sustain that short-term bump in the road, if you will, or short-term storm, if you will. One of the biggest missteps that I made at that time was we communicated it to investors, but looking back, I really wish I would, and I ultimately did this about 3 months in. We switched to a conference call. So we did a monthly call with our investors to give them an update of what happened the month prior. Now we send monthly communication via email. But what I've realized is it would have been a lot more powerful had I gotten on video conference like I've been doing for the last few months, just to convey like, this is what's happening. This is how we're looking at it. This is why we're doing this, because they got a better understanding from hearing the tone of what I'm saying versus just maybe reading an email when their kids are screaming in the background or they're on their way out the door to work or whatever that is. So
Mm.
that was actually a big failure in communication, which is really tough for me because I pride myself on communication with my investors. It's one of the things my investors constantly give me positive feedback about. And it was just such a big misstep. And I should have known better. I should have thought of this earlier. And, a part of it too was we were just digesting rapidly changing information. Like we'd say something and then things would change within 10 seconds. And so it got
Wow.
hard to disseminate information quickly.
Man, that's real. And it's great that you learn from that. What about home runs? I know you like the singles and the doubles, but I'm sure you every now and then you hit a home run. Is there like a home run that sticks out in your mind?
Actually, I think the last deal that we closed was kind of a home run for me. It was an all woman led team. So I had a JV partner on there. We both are women led companies. Our lender was a woman on the deal. Everybody actually on that deal was women led. And so that was really exciting because that very, very rarely happens. My JV partner on that was um, a lady by the name of Ellie Perlman from Blue Lake Capital. And she's just been phenomenal to work with, and really getting to watch her operate and being able to like totally steal her great processes and implement them in my business has actually been really fruitful for me. She's also a minority immigrant, so it's been really exciting to add diversity, and to close an $80 million deal in our space
Wow.
is very rare. And so together, us being able to do that was just like a show of force. And I just really love that. So for me, that was a home run. And the asset's doing really, really well because we underwrote it so conservatively for COVID. It's just surpassing expectations right now.
Man, so you close an $80 million deal. What's the end goal here?
Oh,
I mean, are you going to slow down? Are you trying to set history? Because now we got a woman in the White House, so the bar is constantly being raised. We got you were
um,
doing $80 million deals. Your parents not even from America. So what's the ultimate goal for you?
um, I don't think I know yet. I kept saying like, okay, when I got to this goal, I would slow down. And then I got there and I'm like, well, but if I can do that, I can do this. Dude, let me just do one other thing. I don't know actually. It's hard because right now I work because I want to be working. I do
Mm,
this because I
that's
love
a
what I
blessing. That's a
write.
blessing.
And I have young daughters. I have twin daughters that are 18.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, so
How
I,
cool is that they get to see their mom doing
that's what I want.
making history every day?
I appreciate that. I don't know if I'm making history, but I want them to see me working hard, and I want them to see that they can do anything if they work hard. And I want to practice what I preach. And so, I do this for them. I do this for my family so that my husband works part-time now so that he can
Really?
their kids. Yeah.
Oh man, that's
He's
crazy.
going to be a stay-at-home dad though. So like part-time, I feel like we're really balancing right now. But he's like, well, I could just stay home with the kids. And I'm like,
Oh
no, go to
man,
work.
that's pretty cool.
So yeah. So I think for now I'm gonna keep doing this. Like you said, there's a woman in the White House now, and that I've never had that growing up. And my kids in their most formative years of life are gonna see a woman that looks like them. And you know, Kamala Devi is my mom's name. And so
Really?
yeah, it's my
Wow.
mom's name was Kamala Devi. And so it's like fortuitous,
And she
right?
went to Howard, so
There
that's
you
my
go. There you
connection.
go. It's full circle.
Man.
Well, she's half Indian and half black.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
No, that's amazing. I mean, just the fact that we can have this conversation, because one of the things I like to have on my show is diversity. And I think you're the biggest player so far that I've had. I mean, I've had a few people that have a couple hundred units, but when we're talking about 2,500 units and $500 million, I mean that's big time. Um, in terms of condos, multifamily, single family, which one? I'm a multifamily person.
yeah.
What's your take on that in terms of buy and hold?
Which one's my favorite?
Yeah, or which one do you think is best?
Multifamily.
Yeah.
I look, I'm very laser focused these days. I just simply almost never do a single family deal. And what I mean by that is like sometimes if there's like a house in my neighborhood, and I'm like, "Hmm, I could see that doing well." I might like put an offer in, but I try not to do that. I'm trying to be more disciplined about that. And over COVID, I did try to buy a house in our neighborhood with a pool so I could keep teaching my kids how to swim because I'm crazy and didn't want to go to like public pools, and we don't have a pool at our house. But um, other than that, I would say exclusively multifamily. I like it as an asset class. I think it's stable. I think it's scalable. Obviously, it's easy to scale multifamily compared to single family. I think that there's less inherent risk with it. And I think that it is all around like a very good asset class. I know it very well. I know my numbers well. I know my markets well. So for me, I just kind of stick to that lane and focus on that. But with that being said, there's like a bajillion different ways you can make money in real estate. Like
Yeah.
people flip and they buy notes and they do Airbnb. So it's not limited to any one asset class. I just think whatever asset class you pick, or maybe you pick two or three and you just do that really, really, really well.
Awesome. Awesome. So last few questions. When you're evaluating a deal, like what are some key components? Maybe not yourself, but what should everybody kind of consider when evaluating a deal? I know people like cap rate, people look at cash flow. What are some maybe some things that I didn't think about that. What are some things that people should look at when evaluating a deal?
Yeah, so outside of like your standard metrics, I won't spend a lot of time on those because everybody kind of looks at the same like IRR, cash flow, cash on cash, cap rates, et cetera. What I think the additional things that you should look at. So first and foremost, I think you should go in knowing what your exit strategy is. So who's buying this asset? How are they buying the asset? Are they going to be able to pay your exit price on your reversion cap for this asset? So I think that's kind of the big one. A lot of people don't necessarily go into planning. Secondly, I like to know and understand my demographic of who my tenants are there. So if I'm trying to push rents to $1,000 a month, is the median income in the 5 mile demographic $20,000 a year where no one is going to qualify? Or is it $60,000 a year where I could go well beyond the $1,000 a month? So I look at those metrics too. I also look at our entire portfolio as a holistic portfolio as well. So if there's an opportunity for me to share resources or maybe cut expenses at two assets by buying them close to each other, we'll look at that as kind of an additional win on the asset. So there's a lot of different things that we do look at in that regard. But those are some of the main ones that people maybe don't think of right away, like they do with IRR, cash on cash, or average annualized returns.
Nice, nice. Can you also discuss in your bio? I see that you do a lot of giving back to the community. Can you just talk about why that's important as a businesswoman?
Yeah, my parents raised us like this. And, Warren Buffett said, if you're lucky enough to be part of the 1%, it's your responsibility to look out for the 99 percentile or 99%. And so we really believe that in our house. We have enough and we're very lucky to have that. And so for me, I'm very passionate about helping other people who maybe didn't come from a real estate family, or who doesn't have the education or the background that I have to be able to know even how to get to that next level.
Hmm.
So for me, my parents raised us this way. We're not above giving back to the community and serving our communities. And more importantly, I want my kids to see that too. I mean, I've been doing this my whole entire life, but now that I have kids, um, COVID aside, once COVID is not a thing anymore, we are going to be taking them. I want them. My parents took us to orphanages in third world countries when we were kids, when we go back home to India. And so I plan to do that with my kids. I want them to know not everybody is just born into this life. You have food because we work hard for it, and we're privileged in a lot of ways to be able to provide for you. Everybody doesn't get that. And I want them to know and like stay grounded in that way, because I want my kids to know they're poor. They have no money. They don't earn money. They don't make
Yeah.
money. They are poor.
Yeah, I tell my kids that anytime they say I sat in their seat in the house, I'm like, this ain't your seat.
That's what my husband tells our kids. He's like, these are my pajamas. These are daddy's pajamas and mommy's pajamas. But since they don't fit us, we're going to let you borrow them, but they're not yours.
That's smart. I'm gonna use that one.
Yeah, these are not yours. They just don't fit us, so you can borrow them.
So if I want to follow your movement, or if I want to invest in a project that you may have come upcoming, how would somebody do that?
Yeah. So if someone's a passive investor, I have a portal on my website so they can log in and they can kind of see what we're doing in there. They can schedule an intake call on vivefunds.com. There's a little button, I think, that says portal. And then if you're looking to get advice or kind of experience, or you want to go a little bit further into it, you and I met on Clubhouse. So that's somewhere I've been spending a lot of time because I found it's a really great way to give back to a lot of people at once. So I do spend a lot of time on stages and panels there answering questions and helping other entrepreneurs either strategically shift their thinking or solve a problem they're having or give feedback on a specific deal. So I've done some live underwriting with friends and colleagues on there. So I do spend a lot of time on there now, going through kind of different aspects of real estate, if you will. I learn a lot more than I give on there. So it's a little self-serving to be on Clubhouse,
Yeah,
but
no, totally is.
learn so much there. And so, yeah, you can find me there or you can find me on social media. I'm pretty much everywhere as Veena Jetti.
Nice, nice. And is there like a minimum that you require to invest?
Yeah, so most of our deals, the minimum's 50,000. I do occasionally open up like 3 to 4 $25,000 spots, mainly because I want to offer people who maybe don't have 50,000 liquid an opportunity. But our investments now are 506C investments, so it is accredited investors. But so we do open occasional $25,000 spots, but usually it's 50,000.
Nice, nice. Veena Jetti, you've been a wonderful guest. Thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
For more access to videos and just like this, please visit us at www.gofishvillage.com. Thank you.